everyone, and welcome back to the Capital Edge Tip Line. I'm Chad Braley, the CEO of Capital Edge, and happy to be back here with you. As I mentioned in the first tip line of the year, we've still got NDAA 2026 to talk about. So, what we're going to focus on for this short session, it's going to be on the non-traditional defense contractor, which has kind of existed, but exists in a whole different way, in my opinion, coming out of the signed 2026 NDAA. So, what is a non-traditional defense contractor? Well, a non-traditional defense contractor, as now defined, right, is a contractor that is not and has not performed on any contract subject to full CAS within the preceding year of the solicitation under which they're going after, right, or that they're pursuing. And so, what does that mean, right? If you think about it from an industry perspective, there are hundreds of companies, right? Some of which may be now entering the market, others of which have been in the market, but might be, smaller organizations, but they're bidding on, $5 million contracts, $10 million contracts, right? Not subject to full CAS. So they're not operating in that environment, but they're providing certified cost and pricing data and things of that nature. This is a big deal, I think, and it's going to be interesting, in my opinion, to see how the Department of War, right, accepts some of these assertions, because the definition is pretty straightforward, right, and it's pretty easy to prove whether or not you've been performing in the last year on a contract subject to CAS, or you haven't. And what the new NDA does is non-traditional defense contractors, right, they're exempted from any business systems compliance requirements, right? If we think of the DFARS business systems rules, right? Accounting, estimating, purchasing, MMAS, EVMS, and government property. What it also does, right, is it exempts DFARS 215407, or the successor regulation around defective pricing, FPRAs, should cost reviews, and probably the biggest item, exempts uh, a non-traditional defense contractor from 10 USC 3702, which is the requirement to submit certified cost and pricing data. And last but not least, it exempts compliance from FAR Part 31 or any successor regulation related to the cost principles. This is a pretty big deal, right? And something that I think both for the small and mid-sized companies, they're going to fall into that. How does, this is brand new, right? How are we going to contract, right? When our customer is always used to looking at cost information, right? Certified cost and pricing data. But under this definition, and I meet the requirements, and we're going to contract in a commercial manner, I'm not required to provide that, right? But the buyer, right, still has to have some level of justification, right? Price analysis is, am I still paying a fair and reasonable price? But there's a lot of exemptions to a lot of the underlying compliance requirements, which I think is a pretty big deal. Now, when you think about the larger contractors and the strategics, do I have opportunities where I have certain products or services, right, that I may want to spin out into a different business unit, right, into a new business unit, or to move those contracts from one business unit to a business unit that doesn't have full CAS coverage within it, so that I can now sell these products in a much more commercial manner under a non-traditional defense contractor status via a different segment, right? Because the segments can be treated separately. So this is really interesting stuff. And I will say, even since this has come out, I had a lot of discussions with a lot of different companies in terms of how are they going to pivot the business strategically. Do we want to pivot the business strategically? How do I take advantage of this in a growing contractor, but maybe not with the now not having to worry about the level of compliance as I grow into some of these systems if I'm contracting under this methodology. So, a lot of people are like, what do how's this going to work? Quite honestly, I'm not really sure, but I can assure you that we're about to find out. So, I'll be back soon with some more information. I hope you all have been enjoying these. I'm certainly enjoying being with you, and look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks, and have a great one.